Hey everybody, this is Trey with BlackFalconElectronics.com, and in this video I will be discussing 3D printing basics. So just like with everything, we're going to get straight to the point, no fluff, just get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the tools you'll need for the job. So the first tool you're going to need is a hex key. You can buy this pretty cheaply off of Amazon. The one that I have is the Amazon Basics one. It comes in millimeter as well as inch measurement. It doesn't really matter if it's millimeter or inch, as long as you have a hex key set. This one has quite a few, about at least 10 here. It has the big ones for general use, and then you have the smaller ones which you'll use when you're trying to put your 3D printer together. The second set of tools you'll need will be a thin diagonal cutter. So this typically comes with any 3D printer you buy, but if you happen to not get one, you can just buy one from like Walmart or Amazon really cheaply. And then these thick diagonal cutters, so you can see the difference between the both of them. What is the difference and what's the use of them? So the thick ones are if you have supports, like thin supports that you need to remove, and the item in which it's supporting, like the 3D print that it's supporting, is very thin, like it's easy to break. And if that's the case, you want to use these, I call them crushers. They're not really crushers, but they're thick diagonal cutters, and that'll allow you to cut the pieces of the supports without it popping. Now with these thin ones here, if you have something that can easily break, a 3D printed item that can easily break, and then you cut the support, because it's so thin, it'll snap. And when it snaps, it'll pop. And if that 3D printed item is too thin or is too sensitive, it could just fall right off alongside your support. So that's why if it's small and sensitive, I use these thick diagonal cutters, but if it's something that's strong and not as likely to break, then I'll use these thin boys. And it also like really cuts through the support super easy without crushing it and then creating a portion you just remove, as you will with this. With this thin one, you just boom, pop, and then you're good to go. Next will be your long nose pliers. Now this I use if you have to remove any boogers. So as the printer is printing the item, if you see like little boogers, little blobs of filament that are coming out, you can easily get it, reach in and take it. You can also use these tweezers. I would recommend using a straight tweezer. This is one that I typically use for like soldering and whatnot, but if you have the thin straight ones that are perfectly straight, not angled, those would be more appropriate. But I use it for both because that's what I'm used to. I can just, as soon as I see an opening where the 3D print head is away from the booger, I call them boogers, you just go grab it, take it out, good to go really quick. So yeah, and you'll also need these needle nose pliers if you want to like hold on to something or move something that's a little bit out of reach for your fingers, if you have really thick fingers or your hands aren't as pliable. You can also get longer ones than these, but I find that these tend to work pretty well, but it just depends. Your mileage may vary. The next item you'll need is hairspray. Now, I'm bald, I don't need hairspray, but if you're having adhesion issues, there are some troubleshooting steps you can do, but one of them would be to add some hairspray. Now, the amount of hairspray, like the type of hairspray, if you look closely here at the can, you can see where it goes from 1 to 5. I try to get the hairspray that's rated closer to the maximum. You can also get Big Sexy Hair. That's the brand name for it. I know it sounds weird, but that's the name for it, Big Sexy Hair. It is very strong. I still have some on my print bed. The only way to really get it off is to clean it off is to use hot water, warm hot water, and some soap to clean it off if you want to fully remove it. But if you're having adhesion issues, you can use that as an option. One thing I don't have is glue, but I use glue sometimes. I've used it only once, as well as hairspray, but I mainly use hairspray. So glue or hairspray. To be honest, I personally use hairspray, but you can use either or. It's the same thing. It's a suitable substitute. Both, like each one is a suitable substitute for the other. It just depends on what you desire. But there is no definitive, this is the best, at least in my opinion. The next thing you'll need is paper. Now, you only need paper if you have a 3D printer that allows for manual bed leveling. Mine does. A lot of the newer ones don't. I you'll need the paper so that you can do your bed leveling, and I'll show you how to do that later in the video. But if you have something like a bamboo, most likely, I'm pretty sure all of them now, it's all automatic bed leveling, but if you have one like mine, then you will need paper. Next will be a wrench set. So you'll need these to remove your nozzle. So the one that I got came in a set. So depending on the size nozzle you have and the type of nozzle you have, you could either use these types of wrenches, or you can use this type, which has different different size ones depending on what you're trying to remove. So this has been vital, I will say, very vital to doing any kind of maintenance. If you combine this with a needle nose pliers, if you have a longer one, it'll be great to hold part of the hot end in place as you're doing your maintenance. I will say for this printer that I have, which is a Neptune 4 Max, I have not had to remove anything yet. Eventually I will have to, but I've been doing prints for probably a week's worth of printing, and I haven't had to change the nozzle yet, but eventually I will have to, which is why I have this nozzle wrench set. Next will be your metal brush. So all your brushes that you get, like it might be a different color, it might be black, blue, whatever, it doesn't matter. But as long as the teeth, not the teeth, but as long as the brush here is metal, you're good to go. You don't want the nylon version, you want the metal version. And this is so if you have any buildup, any filament buildup on your nozzle, you can just brush that off when it's heated to get all that messiness out so that you don't negatively affect your print. Because you will have like boogers and blobs that develop if you have any buildup on your nozzle. So I'll show you later in the video how to do that, but you want to make sure that you definitely have a metal brush, and I would recommend having a couple brushes. This one came with the Neptune 4 Max, but typically I would have like 2 or 3 additional on top of the ones that just come with whatever printer, just to help with getting all that gunk out of there, because eventually you're going to have a blowout where there's just this massive ball from you not tightening your nozzle correctly, which you would need your nozzle wrenches for, and then you'll have a lot of stuff to clean up. So you would use a combination for a blowout. You would use a combination of your nozzle wrenches as well as your brush as well as your tweezers to take out the blobs. And what comes with just about every printer I've ordered is your thumb drive. So typically it comes with just this little thing, this little thumb drive that has a slot here in the middle where you can put an SD card. In my experience, when I get this, when I get the actual SD card, I typically do a format, not a quick format, I do a thorough format. But typically I also just buy my own from like Walmart. I don't really trust these too much. That's a personal thing. And I've noticed that when I've used the supplied SD cards, that my printer tends to act a little janky, but then when I get one I buy from a reputable store like Walmart, anything that's like, from the grocery store or just the store in general, it tends to work more. I don't know why. I'm not a technical expert on that, but that is something that I notice. But you'll at least, you may not use their SD card, the supplied SD card, but using this thumb drive that it comes with, it tends to be okay. Next are your nozzle cleaners. So they typically come in a set of different length needles. And if I can get this open, typically you'll see different sizes, and they correspond to the different sizes of your nozzle. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab one at random. All right, so when you get it, typically it comes in some kind of test tube fashion with the like silicone tip, silicone like cover. This one is for filament, not filament, but this comes for nozzle size 0.4, as you can see here. And when you open one of them up, this might be a little difficult because I have all white everything except the printer. But when you get these, let me get one of them out for you guys. You'll see that you gotta be real careful so you don't accidentally stab yourself. But if you look at the end here, and maybe I can use the contrast of my skin, you can see where it has like this little, it has like almost like a spring, and then that's where you hold it. And then it has a needle. Let me use my skin for contrast. You can see it's a sharp needle point. So the sharp needle, if you have a clog, you would shove this, not shove, but you would stick this up the nozzle after you've heated it and brought it to the temperature, melting temperature of the filament, or let's say the working temperature of the filament. And then you would push this up, and then you would either manually or with the software, you would use the extruder to like push the filament down to try and clear a clog. Now, if the clog isn't coming out when you try and get it pushed down and using the nozzle cleaner, then you may have to use more hands-on actions. Hands-on actions meaning using your wrench, your nozzle wrench, as well as your needle nose pliers, as well as your hex key. So the hex key to open up the shroud or the casing of the hot end, and then using the combination of your nozzle wrench as well as your needle nose pliers to unscrew the nozzle itself. And then once you unscrew it, you can either switch it out with a new nozzle if it's too clogged and won't come out, or you can use the needle nose pliers to push it out. You'll need another set of needle nose or some other tool to hold the nozzle, because you want to handle it when it's really hot. And then once you push it through, if you see any gunk coming out, you can go ahead and grab your tweezers, and you can just like pull the gunk out, and then hopefully get a clear nozzle from there. But it depends. It's more hands-on for sure, but you definitely want to be more hands-on so you understand the inner workings of the printer, instead of like being like, oh, well, everything's automatic, I don't have to worry about anything. Then as soon as something breaks, you're like, oh, you're screwed. You know what I'm saying? It's always going to be hands-on so you can truly understand your machine and understand it at the component level. The next thing will, of course, be your filament. So this is some filament that I bought. There are different types of filament that have different qualities. The most basic you can get is PLA. I will tell you from my own experience to not get PLA, because any type of heat and it's gonna melt. So the base that I recommend is to get some PETG. The type of PETG, I would just get basic PETG. Don't get like carbon fiber, any of that if you're just now starting. The brand that I recommend, not sponsored, but if you want to sponsor me, I'm your guy, is Creality. I'll tell you what I recommend versus not recommend. I recommend Creality. I haven't had any issues with anything getting knotted here, so like the filament being like wrapped around itself. Haven't had that issue with the Creality brand. I haven't had any issues with the printing quality. I have been running Creality for quite a while, and I've had very few, like so few, vanishingly few issues with the Creality brand, PETG filament specifically. I do have other filaments as well, but if you're just starting on your 3D printing journey, I highly recommend getting your Creality brand 3D printing filament. So Creality brand PETG filament, and then you're good to go. And the color doesn't matter. It can be black, white, red, doesn't matter. And if you look at the side of any filament reel that you buy, you'll see where it tells you the temperature for the hot end as well as for the bed itself. So if you look closely here, you can see that the extruder temperature, that's your nozzle. You want to have your temperature set for this specific reel between 230 to 250 degrees Celsius. And excuse me, then for your bed, 70 to 80 degrees Celsius works pretty fine, very perfectly actually. It doesn't matter if it's 70, 71, 72, it's just anything between 70 degrees and 80 degrees Celsius and you're in business. All right, so this is my Elegoo Neptune 4 Max. I really love this printer because it has a super huge build volume and it's very fast and can print very big. So those are the best things I like. Very fast, very big, very cost efficient. I believe is worth it. But in any case, so when you first get this and you set it up, you would be using, of course, your Allen wrench key so that you can put everything together. The directions are pretty quick, easy, simple, and to the point. So that's a huge plus. Now, one thing I also like is that it has this like telephone cord from like back in the day if you guys are old like me. But you can use it to like stretch things out so you can see whatever you need to. Big thing when you first get this set up is you want to use the Wi-Fi. You don't have to, but you can see I'm already connected to it. And you want to do that because, let me get into the actual picture. You actually want to do the Wi-Fi so that you can wirelessly send your prints over to the printer without having to load it to a thumb drive, eject the thumb drive from your computer, place it into the 3D printer, go into print, find what you're going to print, and then start the print. It's just so much easier to do it wirelessly. But if you wanted to do it the Unga Bunga way, that's okay. Sometimes I like to do it the Unga Bunga way. It's just now I don't want to. All right, so when you first get it and you first set it up, you want to go ahead and do a level. So how you would do it, my recommendation, especially if you already have the filament in, if you don't have the filament already inserted, then you don't need to heat it up first. But because I already have the filament in and have, obviously, as you can see from this filament reel, been doing some printing, you want to start it. So for me, or for you, if you already have the filament inserted, you would go to prepare, temp, and then it has different options. Bring it close to you here. I'm choosing PETG because that's what I have in here. And then it's going to start heating up. The nozzle heats up very quickly compared to the heat bed. I'm sorry, not the heat bed, but the print bed. So you don't really need the print bed to be hot. In all honesty, you could just turn it off. Oops. In all honesty, you could just turn it off. So you could just do a boop, hit this red power button, and then boom, the print bed is just going to go to 0. But you can also just keep it up, keep it on, and then you're good to go. It doesn't matter either way. So now that I did that, I'm going to go back to the main menu, and I'm going to go ahead and start leveling. So to level, you just hit the scales where it says level, and then once you hit it, it's going to give you this text, and you press confirm. As soon as you press confirm, it's going to go ahead and start Z-homing. Well, it's going to home everything, so your X, Y, Z axes. And then once this is done, you go ahead and do your general leveling, and then you're going to do your specific leveling, which I'll show you. I'll also go ahead and speed this up so we get straight to the point. All right, now we're done. So if you look here, you can do, again, if you look to the left, you see it says auxiliary. If you look to the right, it says automatic. You want to do auxiliary first, especially if your print's messing up or if it's your first time setting this printer up. So I'm going to hit it auxiliary, and here's the text that shows up. You want to press confirm, and then what it's going to do is it's going to do another home. And what you're going to do is you see these 6 points on the bed. You're going to select each one, and you're going to adjust your bed adjustment wheel so that the paper, when you're doing the scratch test, has a necessary enough consistent scratch level so that your prints come out good. So every time you hit it, it's going to light up. So that's kind of unimportant to see necessarily, like seeing it light up on the screen. So I'll just show you how it looks here. I'll make a quick adjustment, and then we'll go ahead and go through it. All right, so on the screen, you don't have to go in order. You can go in any order you want to, as long as it's done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 1 point here, point 1, get a piece of paper underneath the print head, and then I'm going to test it to verify the scratch level. So scratch level is a made-up term that I made, and I can feel that this is too tight. So you want to be able to move it both ways, back and forth easily. I can't do it here. So because I can't do it, I know I need to make an adjustment. And then I'm going to make that adjustment by using my needle nose pliers. Now, you guys don't have to worry about having needle nose pliers because your bed adjustment wheels it will already be installed. So here's your adjustment wheels. They're going to be 6, 3 on each side. I removed mine so that it would be more difficult for the prints to mess up. And it would be harder for, like, if you have these wheels are very sensitive, easy to turn when you have it underneath the bed. So I made these adjustment nuts instead, so that one is harder to remove as the bed is slinging back and forth, because I have it go very fast. And so that's why I did that. And that's why I need these needle nose pliers. Now, for leveling, what I suggest you do, and I'll show you, is you do general leveling and then specific leveling, as I said a few minutes before. Right now, I'm just going to do general leveling. So I'm just going to go to each point and verify that the scratch level is fairly consistent throughout all the points. And then I'm going to do specific leveling where I go and make whatever fine adjustments that I need to make. And then for every adjustment that I make, I go back to the previously adjusted position of the bed and verify that that is level as well. So if I did 1 and then I go to 2, once I adjust 2, I go back to 1. If I go to 3 and I adjust 3, then I go to 2 and then 1 to make sure those are all level, and then so on and so forth. Again, you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can go in whatever combination you want, as long as at the end of the day you do your general leveling first and then your specific leveling, where you go back to each point that was previously adjusted to verify consistency, and then you'll go to the next step. Once you do it one time, you should be good for quite a while, but I just want to go ahead and let you guys know that's how it is right now, so you're not super surprised. And once you do it and you already know the process, the next time you have to do your leveling process will be a lot quicker. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through this so that you see that it is being done, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, so I did the general leveling. Now I'm going to do what I call, and again, this is made up terminology, and now I'm going to do the specific leveling, where now that everything has been generally in this, all the points are generally in the correct spot, now I'm going to make sure everything is perfectly aligned. So first you go shotgun, then you go sniper. So now that I did that, I did the shotgun and I did the sniper. I didn't really need to do the sniper, thankfully, but that's good. The next step, here you can see the middle one isn't homed. It doesn't need to be because it already does the homing before you start. I would then go to back on assist leveling, and it's going to give you this prompt, and you're going to press OK. It says auxiliary leveling completed. Press confirm to auto leveling immediately. Press cancel will clear the previous auto leveling measurement data. And then at the bottom it says make sure to complete the assisted leveling operation at each point and rerun the auto leveling when done. So I'm going to press confirm. And then now that I'm done with that, it's going to go rehome, and it's going to go through every single point. There was one thing that I forgot to state, is that I have this on advanced, so it has a lot more points that it's going to go through. And that's to ensure that the resolution of the print level is very fine. So once it's done, use a couple more seconds. Once it gets above the zebra bars, then it'll start. So here you can see these are all the positions that it will go through once it cools down a little bit. Oh, it's actually starting now. So it's going to go through all these points. When you first start, it's not going to be this many points, but I set it to the advanced so that it would go through these points. So think of it like pixels. The more pixels you have, the better your resolution. Resolution in this situation would be the resolution of your print. So the print quality would be a lot better, because instead of, this level and this level, like these 2 points being level, you're making sure that these two plus everything in between is level as well. So if there are any like little adjustments that need to be made, they can be made. So I'll go fast forward through all of this, but as it does each point, you will see the number pop up showing like, oh, it took that point. And then it's just going to keep on going through all 121. So once we go through this, we'll get to the next section. So now that I've finished all of the points, now you're going to see this prompt, and you can pause if you need to read it. Long story short, make sure that it's not too high or too low. So I'm going to press confirm. And then what I like to do to get the paper under it, you can see the highlighted portion where it says 0.01, 0.1, and then 1 millimeter. I like to raise it up by 1 millimeter. And then I'll drop it by that 1 millimeter. And then I'll do that scratch test. Oof, this is too much. So I'm going to go up 0.1 millimeters. I press it 2 or 3 times. scratch level is too low. So I'm gonna go down 1, go down 2. 2 seems to be, nope, but if I go down by 3, it's gonna be very hard. So I'm gonna change it to 0.01 millimeter changes. And then I'm gonna go down even in smaller increments to make sure we get that good scratch level. We don't want it too high or too low. Just like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, we want it just right. And this feels just right. Maybe like a little, hold on. Yeah, this is really good. All right, cool. So now that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and press save. Press save and then continue. And then it's saving the data. You can hear that everything turned off. And then once it's done, I think we're about to be in business very soon. All right, so it has saved those values. So now you're back to the normal screen. Now, you are done with the bed leveling. And now that we're done with the bed leveling, the next step is to proceed with the software. Hey guys, video insert. There was something that I forgot to tell you guys when you're setting up, so that's why I did the video insert here. So when you are getting things done when you're setting up your printer, go into settings. Then from settings, go into advanced settings. So let me just show you guys. Settings, then advanced settings. Then what you want to do is a couple things. First thing, when I was talking about the level mode, you want to go here where it says level mode, and it has standard mode at the top, and then it has professional mode. Make sure you put in professional mode, and then that'll increase the resolution of the point probing that I was talking to you guys about, and then you can save it. The next thing would be doing the input shaper in the nozzle pid calibration. So for the input shaper, you would just go here where it says input shaper, boop, and then click on XY axis for measurement. And so then I'm going to do both. So first I'm going to do X axis, and then you'll see what happens. Then I'll do Y axis, then you'll see what happens. So X axis pressed, and then we're going to hit, it says X sensor status is normal. We're doing start the sensor, and then during X axis vibration detection, please do not touch the printer is the alert. And then it starts jiggling. And then eventually it starts jiggling so fast, you might not be able to see it, but you can see the filament kind of jiggling. And this is the X-axis calibration. It's still jiggling, by the way. Oh my God. It's like going. Like I'm looking at it with my eyes, and it's going so fast it looks like a blur. That's crazy. Still vibrating to the point where like it looks like a blur when you're looking at it. All right, it's done. And I'm just waiting for that input shaper to complete so I can go to the next section. Okay, cool. X-axis vibration detection has been completed, so I'm going to go to return. Now I'm going to go for the Y-axis, and you already know what's going to happen. We're going to do the start detection, and it's going to do the same thing, but instead it's going to be the Y-axis, which will actually be the board itself. And then it's going to do its vibration. And then the print bed is going to start doing the super jiggle. It's actually shaking everything on my table right now. Oh my God. Jesus. All right, it's done. So the input shaper is done. Now, so I did the input shaper for the X and Y axis. Now I'm going to go into the nozzle. It's called the nozzle pid calibration. I'm going to go ahead into that. Start detection. And again, don't touch it. While it does, it starts heating up and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. This is pretty awesome. I just wanted to make that insert to make sure that you guys weren't led astray because of, my mistake. So now let's move on to the next section of the video. All right, so for your slicer, you're going to need to go to elegoo.com, pages, download, go to the Software Center. I'll have the link in the description. And once you get here, you want to go ahead and click your slicing software for the new version. for Windows, and then you go through the download process. The next thing you want to download would be Fusion 360. All right, so here you'll need to select Get Fusion, Autodesk Fusion for personal use. Then you'd have to create an account, do the download, and all that good stuff. But once you're done, you can go into the next session, which is setting up your software for Elegoo. All right, so here is the Elegoo software, slicer software. There are many different ones you can download, but if you have the Elegoo Neptune 4 Max, this one's pretty awesome. I don't have many issues out of it. I don't have any issues out of it, actually. So the first thing we're going to do is change a couple of values. First thing you want to change, and trust me, you may or may not understand why we're doing it, but I'll explain it. First thing is we want to make it easy for the printer to print supports. The default state is for this printer as fast as possible. So we want to slow a couple things down, namely in this portion at least, the supports, so that they are printed well and you don't have a lot of stringing and you don't have any issues where your products aren't supported correctly and you have basically a print failure. So to stop that, we're going to slow down the print. So we're going to go to the speed tab, and then we're going to go to this section that I already have changed. So it's going to be called support and support interface under other layers speed. And you want to change it so that the values are between 60 and 80 millimeters per second. Now, it really doesn't matter what number it is as long as it's between 60 and 80 millimeters per second. And then for your support interface, you want to change it so it's the same value. I'm sure it could be a little different as long as it's between 60 and 80, but for consistency's sake, I prefer to just keep the numbers the same. Now, the next thing is under the support tab. Again, I already have it changed, but you want to change these couple of values. So you want to change your top Z distance to 0.21 millimeters, as well as your bottom Z distance to 0.21 millimeters. And then you want to change your support wall loops to 2. And this you don't have to do, this portion with the base pattern. I choose honeycomb because hexagon is the bestagon. If you watch SCP Gray, hexagon is just the bestagon from my experience. You don't have to do this part, but the other portions you do have to do. And when you do all of these changes, you'll make it easier to print supports, as well as we're going to do this last one, which will make it easier to remove the supports. So to do that, you go to support tab, which we're already on, and we already changed the top and bottom Z distance to 0.21. But what you also want to do is change the pattern angle. So here's a pattern angle, and you want to change that to 45 degrees. And by doing that, all of those combined, you make it easy to print supports and to remove the supports without having to use like a lot of tools, or the tools that you do use, it makes it easier to like just pop them off and then you're good to go. Now, with that said, we already got the meat and potatoes out of it. And these sections, these values, top Z distance, bottom Z distance, base pattern, different sections of your slicer. So even if you're not using the Elegoo slicer, you're using a different one, these values still exist. It just may be under a different tab or maybe under a different subsection. But you want to find these. Hopefully you have a search portion like Elegoo slicer has, and then you could just find those specific value names. And I already highlighted them as we were going through it, so then you'll be good to go with that. Another thing that would be good to adjust, what I like to do at least, I like to go here and change the nozzle temperature as needed. So right now I'm using a texture PEI plate, which is the bed type. And depending on the type of filament and the company you get it from, the values on the side of the filament reel that I showed you earlier in the video may have different parameters. But for the reel that I have made by Creality, the first and other layers are both at 240 degrees Celsius. And that's really all you need to change, as well as a texture PEI plate. I have the first and other layers at 70. You can have it between 70 and 80, but just look at the side of your filament reel, as well as you do your printing, you may have to adjust it per company. So for me, that's why I like to keep consistency in that whatever company I go with for filament, I tend to use it for all the materials. So all of my PETG comes from Creality. If I have glow-in-the-dark filament, it may come from a different company, but you won't see me getting different glow-in-the-dark filament from different companies, just so that when I input the values, I can have as consistent as possible instead of having to make custom temperature profiles for different filaments because it quickly becomes annoying. Another thing is setting overrides. Now, you don't have to do this. It just depends on your printer, how often you have to adjust things or whatnot. But what I like to do is I have the Z-Hop height as 1 mm, and I have the Z-Hop type as auto, and I have it do it on all surfaces and change the retraction speed to 60 millimeters per second. These you don't have to do, but if you see that you need to make some changes, like you keep getting failures or a lot of issues in your print, it will be worth looking into. And then you just save it and make a custom name for it. Now, I will go through these tabs and I'll tell you the important things you need to look for outside of what I already covered. First thing, quality. The layer height you can keep the same. You can make it more fine, but at 0.2 millimeters, I mean, that's really what you need. You can keep the rest of these default values, but having a layer height at 0.2 millimeters is pretty decent. For your seam position, you can change this. I like to just keep it aligned. It doesn't really change anything as long as the rest of your parameters are pretty good. I mean, you don't have to make a whole bunch of changes, but in any case, seam position, I just keep it aligned. You can have it aligned back, have it at the back or random. I have done random and have had issues before. That doesn't mean that I will always have issues or that you will have issues, but you can't go wrong with just putting it at aligned. Going through the rest of this, you don't really need to change anything else, especially if you're just now starting. You really don't need to change any of these. For strength, going to the top, wall loops, I do change. So if you're using glow-in-the-dark filament, you want to have your wall loops at 10, at least at 10 to maximize the amount of glow that you get, because you'll have more material that will absorb the light and then glow because of it. Typically though, you won't go wrong if you go to like 5 wall loops, but I typically just keep it at 10, 1 for glow in the dark filament, and 2 because 10 makes it decently strong. Looking through the rest of these, I don't really change anything except for the sparse infill pattern. I keep it at gyroid, and the reason I have it at gyroid is because when it's at gyroid, you can have your sparse infill density very low, and it still is, because of how it meshes, it does it, it's hard to describe unless you see it, but I'll show you in a print. But sparse infill density basically is how much solid infill you have. So you can have it at 100, which is 100% unnecessary, or you can have it at like 2 or 3%. The point of having your sparse infill pattern at gyroid is so that you can have a low percentage of sparse infill density and still not encounter errors. That's the long and short of it. I don't have anything else that needs to be changed here. Next would be your speed. I never change anything here, except what was already changed, but yeah, you don't have to worry too much about the speed portion. Next is supports. For your enable support, it just depends on what you have. I'm gonna just bring something in and then show you, when something needs supports versus don't need supports. Sometimes you'll get this alert where object is too small. The object from the file monsterscorpion.stl is too small and may be in meters or inches. Do you want to scale to millimeters? I'll say yes. And then here's a model which I named Monster Scorpion. I did not make this, so please don't think I made this. I am not this creative yet. So something like this would need support. Specifically, if you look at this tail, it'll need support. If you look at here, the pincers are going to need support. You can see the legs will need supports as well, because it's kind of floating, especially these back legs. These back legs are 100% going to need supports, because it looks like it's trying to do a sting, like it's actively trying to sting you, like it's in a ready position. So how you would do this is you would just say enable support. The type I like is tree auto, and then for the style, you can do any of these, but I use tree strong, just because the printer prints so fast that I've had issues where it's knocked over the print and knocked over the supports. And then I also do on build plate only, and sometimes, so for this print, I will not select support critical regions only, but depending on what I am printing, I will adjust this. So for the Scorpion, I will have it support everything, not just the critical, but I always make sure that I have the supports on the build plate only, and that's just to ensure you don't have any scarring from the printer printing supports on the model itself. So on build plate only, always enable. Support critical regions only depends on the model. For this one, it will not be support critical regions only. And then you may need a raft. Typically you don't, but if you're having issues with adhesion, you can enable a raft. I have found that having 10 layers is the perfect number. And then raft base, everything else you can keep the same. And yeah, that's about it. Then for multi-material, don't need, and for others, you can adjust the skirt loops. And that's just to make sure that the filament's coming out at a decent rate. I do 10, that's fine. Skirt type doesn't matter. I do combine, I don't do per object. And per object, how that would work is if you're cloning the material, if you do per object, then it's going to do 10 loops around this model, and then 10 loop skirt around this one. Have it combined so it's just one huge one. And when you're printing, I don't do by object, I just do it all together. So each layer is automatically printing each model instead of all of one model, then go and print all of the other model. So yeah, and that's really about it for that. So I'm gonna go back and just go ahead and delete this one. And then once you're good, you have everything situated, you can go ahead and slice the plate. So you can see it's generating everything. And then once it's done, it'll give you a summary and show you how everything's going to look. And you can see that, you know, you have some supports for the eyes. You definitely have support for the stinger. This is how it's going to look. Now, yes, this looks like a lot of supports and it looks intimidating, but because we adjusted the settings, as I showed you a couple minutes ago, this will be super easy to all remove without tearing out the legs. All right, so then once we're done, you can go to print, and then once you select print, you select your printer, and then you'll send it wirelessly and start it. Now, do not start it yet because there's still a couple more things we have to go through before we press print, but we can have things at the ready. So assuming you already have everything inserted, the next step would be to just press print on your model. But let's say you didn't do that. Let's go ahead and get this removed real quick. We'll just press PET G because I have PET G, and then we'll go ahead and remove it. One good thing to notice when we insert and remove the filament is that you have here this little item here. This is a filament runout sensor. This detects if there's any filament. So if you're printing and then you run out of filament, it stops the print and it'll make an alert. And then from there, you'll have to reinsert another some more filament and then heat it up. It'll load it for you. It remembers the temperature. It's super convenient. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to prepare, and I'm just gonna make this head move up a little bit. So what I'm just gonna do is remove it. So there's this little latch here, and I'll bring you a little closer so you can see. So here's this little lip, this little latch here. It's not a latch, it's more of a lip. I'm gonna press this down gently. So what I do is I have you don't have to do it exactly like this, but I have my finger, my index finger resting against here. Then I have my thumb on the lip, and then I press it down. And my index finger keeps the head from sliding back and forth. So I do this, and then I just pull it out. And then once I pull it out, I can go ahead and retract it. And then with it being removed, I will go ahead and just retract it manually by rolling the spool until you see that light turns off. The light turned off because it doesn't detect any filament, and then we're good to go. So let's say I wanted to switch it out or just reinsert it. I'll just go ahead and I'll get my diagonal cutters. I'll get the thin diagonal cutters. I'll cut the filament so that it's at an angle. And that when you have it cut at an angle is easier to insert. So now that I have it, I'll put it through the filament runout sensor, and you see it lights up blue. and then I will run it down to the print head. So it's going to go all the way down. I'm going to do the same thing, open it up, and we're already at temperature, so I'm just going to insert it carefully, and then it's going to go in. Now, I will lift it up a little bit more so you can see that contrast. There are two ways to do this, to load it. You can do the latch, and then you can just gently insert it until you see the filament come out, and then you can just grab it and toss the excess in the trash. What you want to do if you have different colors, let's say you have the same material, so you have the same PETG, but it's different colors. You could manually do it, where you manually open it, open the lip, and then you keep inserting gently until you see the old color run out and the new color run in. Or what you could do is, let's say, okay, have it removed. I'm going to use my thin diagonal cutters to cut it so it's at an angle. That was not a good one. This will be a good one. Hear that snap? I don't know if you can see it. You should be able to. Where it's diagonal, it's like a hypodermic needle. And then the automatic way you can do it is you just insert it a little bit. Hold on, let me make sure I get that angle right. And you'll know if it's right because it starts running down further. And then you could stop once it's inserted. And then you can go into your settings. And in your settings here, you would just hit extruder and then load. And then once you hit load, you can see it starts doing it automatically. And then it'll just keep on going, and you should see the contrast as it starts running that new filament in. There's no old filament that runs out technically. And then you can see it does it. I prefer doing it manually because it's a lot quicker. So as you insert it, you get it running out of the nozzle, then you're good to go. And then you know when it stopped, when this wheel here stops rotating, and you just grab the excess filament. I like to check to verify there aren't any like little strings I didn't initially notice. If there are, I just get this wire brush here and then just give it a quick little brush, like brushing his teeth. Make sure there isn't any gunk on it, and then be good to go. Now, one thing you may notice from you putting your Neptune 4 Max together is that the fan is missing. Why is this fan missing? Well, I took the fan out because it was causing issues. So when I would be printing, if there were any little artifacts of like little small strings, and I mean like micro strings of filament that happen to go a little bit above the main body of the print, the fan would just keep hitting it and it would make this loud rasping noise. That doesn't mean that there was something wrong with the printer, but it would just do that, and I would just be so tired of like I'm working and I hear from the micro pieces of filament scratching against the fan. It doesn't scratch against the print head or anything like that, but the fan, it sometimes does. So I just remove it, and I typically print from PETG anyway, so I don't really need a fan anyway. You typically want to have the fan at 0%, so it's not working, so there's no point for me having the fan. Now, if I print other materials, maybe I'll need it, but as far as upgrades for this printer, the only thing would be making a heated enclosure for it, but I don't have to worry about that right now. So we're good to go on that. So now that I have everything set up, you can go ahead and do whatever print you want. So let's go and discuss how you would go get a print and take it basically from the idea level of what you want to print to actually printing it. What I did was just showed you something that I already had and knew what to do. So let's go ahead back to the computer so I can show you that process from beginning to end. There are many different places you can go to get 3D prints, to get the files and what have you. One that I like to use particularly is Thingiverse, but there are different free ones you can access. You can also pay for some if you want to. There are websites that do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, it's up to you and what you want to do. So let's do that Scorpion one. That's pretty easy. So you just search for whatever you want to look for. I'm gonna go for Scorpion. I guess I can see if this one will work. You just close the ad. They have to pay bills too, so that's why I'm not tripping too much about it. This one it'll show you like the picture. Oh my gosh. Okay, these are pretty bad. His heat setting is very bad. That's why you have the stringing. And oh man, this is actually, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not tripping too much over it. The one thing I don't like about this model though is you can see the stinger is super thin. So here you can see where it's popped off. So let's not use that. Let's use a nice stable one. Let's see if I can find that scorpion, that monster scorpion that I labeled. This is a good one. I tried to print several scorpions. That one's actually pretty easy to print. I'm trying to find the monster one. Here it is. Oh, this one is also very stable, but I'm going to go for this one. Non-sponsored, by the way. So what you would do is, you see it, you would click here where it says download all files. You wait the 5 seconds. They got to pay the bills. It is what it is. So after the download is completed, it'll show you where you want to save it. You would press save. Then once you save it, you would open it inside of your slicer. All right, so as you can see, for Monster Scorpion, yours is labeled differently. It's too small. You want to scale it to millimeters, yes. And then here you go, here, popped up. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list of everything, like when I talked about the different tabs. I didn't talk about everything. I just talked about what you needed to know to get started quickly. So I'm going to go ahead to slice plate, and then it'll slice it, and it'll show you all the parameters, such as like how long it'll take. All right, so this is going to be 6 hours and 31 minutes. That's a lot. We're going to scale this down. So this I want to be part of like the super detailed version of the video, but this is going to take 6 hours. I don't want it to take 6 hours. I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to half it. All right, cool. Then I'm going to reslice. 6 hours of insanity. All right, so here is going to be 1 hour and 39 minutes, a lot more manageable. So with that, you would go ahead to print, and then you would hit print, select your printer, and then it would start.